Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to tackle a subject that is important for everyone, especially as we move into hotter weather. And that is how to stay cool without electricity. Now, chances are your power's not going to go out, or at least not for long, but it could happen. And if it happens when it's especially hot, and like where I live, it gets up to well over 100 degrees, sometimes for days or weeks on end, you want to be prepared for a power outage. Also, even if you don't have a power outage, it's good to implement some of these tips so that you can stay cool without using as much electricity, and that can really help reduce your electric bill. So I live in Southern California, kind of in the Inland Empire is the part of the state that I live in, and it tends to be very, very hot, and we also have very high electricity cost. So even if my power never goes out, these are tips that I like to use to help me to use less electricity when it comes to staying cool. And by the way, in future videos, I'm also going to share some other tips, power outage kind of tips, or how to reduce your electric cost. So if that appeals to you, be sure to subscribe. Now back to what I'll cover in this video. So a reason that I wanted to cover this topic, again, is not just to reduce your electric bill or to stay cool and be comfortable, but it can actually matter for your health if it's too hot. There are people who do sometimes die of heat stroke when it's just too hot. And my husband and I currently live with my 92-year-old mom, and it'd be really, really bad if we didn't have electricity and weren't able to cool the home. So anyway, that's part of my motivation. Your situation, no doubt, is different, but it can actually impact your health if you're too hot. So that's something to keep in mind. So in this video, I'm going to cover everything from using cross ventilation, the right clothes to wear, different things you can do in your home to reduce electricity cost, and even some of the right foods to eat or to avoid in order to stay cool without electricity. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so the first main category I want to talk about is the importance of choosing the right clothing. Okay, so here are a few things to keep in mind when you think of what to wear when it's really hot. So the first thing is to choose light-fitting clothing. If you wear clothing that fits tight, it tends to trap the heat in. Whereas if you're wearing something that is loose and flowing, then it allows the air to circulate, and that can really make a big, big difference in whether or not you stay cool when it's really hot. As an example, let's say you have two pairs of shorts. One is like a spandex type, bike short type of thing, and it's tight fitting, or you have, let's say, some gym shorts that are loose. You would pick the gym shorts over the tight-fitting shorts, and that will keep you cool. I like wearing a loose dress, a sundress, that type of thing, because then there's not much that keeps the air from flowing. And so that's the first tip, is to be sure to wear loose-fitting clothes. The next thing is to wear light colors. Obviously white, I think white is gorgeous anyway. I just love the way that it looks. But it doesn't have to be white, but light colored clothing. So if you wear dark clothes, like if you're wearing a black loose dress, that's going to be hotter than if you're wearing a white one. So the color is important because black tends to absorb heat. It tends to pull the heat in, and white tends to reflect it off, and that'll help keep you cooler as well. So be sure to pick light colored clothing. So loose clothing that is light in color is the ideal thing that you would wear. Another thing is if you're outside, be sure to cover your head. So using basically a hat can be seen as almost like an umbrella, something that shields you from the sun. So that'll be very, very helpful as well. Anytime you go outdoors, to put on a hat that has a brim. Now, obviously, one that has a brim all the way around is even better, but even a ball cap that keeps the sun off your face will be helpful. Now, one of the most important things is think about what you're going to wear to bed. Loose fitting clothing. It doesn't need to be light in color because, it's going to be dark, and so you're not going to have the issue of it absorbing the sun. But it should be loose fitting clothing, lightweight, fabrics that breathe, such as cotton, is what you want to look for when you're choosing your sleepwear. And this isn't related to clothing, but you can also choose to sleep in a cooler part of your house if you have that option. So in my current home where we're living with my mom, we don't have a basement, but where we lived in Colorado, our home there had a basement and it was way cooler in the basement. So that can be also something that you can do, to sleep more comfortably, is to go down into the basement. But when it comes to clothing, just wear something loose and lightweight and comfortable. There are also some sheets that kind of keep that are better for cooling, and I can't think of the name right off, but I'll link to some options for you as well in that regard, because that can be helpful as well. Obviously, you don't want to sleep in something like flannel sheets. That would not be good. But there's other certain ones that are just better when it comes to keeping you cool. Okay, so let's talk now about how to keep your home or your condo, apartment, whatever it is that you have, cooler during hot weather without using electricity or with using less electricity. So the first thing is to close the blinds or the drapes. Again, in my mom's home, we have, or she has, and we live there, so we have these huge windows in the living room. And it's really nice because it makes the house nice and bright and everything. But that room, the living room, is so hot in the summer. And so a lot of times we'll close the drapes just because that does help to reduce the heat. So that's definitely something you can do. Close your blinds, your drapes, whatever it is that you have to help to block out the sun from shining through. And this is especially true if you have a lot of windows, but even if you don't have that many windows, go ahead and do that. If you have multiple rooms in your home, you may have certain rooms that are hotter than others. I mentioned our living room, and unfortunately we don't have a door that can shut to block off that. But if we did, that would be a perfect thing to do, because that room, the living room, gets so hot that it's easy for the heat from there to kind of move into the rest of the house. Now, maybe it just depends on how your home or apartment is configured, but you might have just a certain room that for whatever reason, the direction that it faces, the number of windows that you have or what have you, for that room to get hotter. If you close the door to whatever room that is, that can help the heat from spreading into the rest of your home. Another thing that you can do is to create cross ventilation. And basically that just means opening windows or doors that are opposite each other. You may not have any doors that are directly or windows that are directly across from each other, but as long as they're kind of in opposite directions, opposite ends of the home, that can be helpful to get a cross breeze. Now, again, this is going to depend somewhat on where you live. If it's 120 degrees outside, then this may or may not help. But so you'll just kind of have to experiment and see. And if you have a breeze going, then that can help a lot as well. Now, let's say that you don't have a lot of breeze. Maybe you live in a place where you simply don't have a lot of breeze and the electricity's out and you want to cool things down. It's worth having some battery-powered fans on hand. So there's actually, what my preference is, are fans that can work on battery power or be plugged in, because then that way you can use them plugged in when you do have electricity, but if the electricity goes out, you can use a battery. And especially if you place those a couple of places throughout the house, or if it's just you in the home, you can place it right near you so that it's blowing right on you, and that'll help tremendously. So the next thing is to shade your home. Now, this is obviously not a short-term fix. It's something that requires some time and some planning and possibly some money. But if you own your home, or even a condo or whatever, this is something that you can do to help block out the sun. As an example, in my mom's home, on each side of her home, she has like a metal cover that goes across the patio on one side and then a garage on the other side, and that blocks out a lot of the sun. On top of that, she has a row of trees planted on each side of her home and on the sides of the home. And so the trees and these metal awnings kind of cover and shade both sides of her home, not the front and not the back, but the sides of the home. And this picture that I have here, it shows her patio. It's in the middle of the day. The sun is shining, but you can see how it looks kind of dark. When you walk out to her patio, it feels cool, generally even on a hot day, and it's because there's so much shade. And so there's two things there, that it could be an awning or trees or that type of thing. You can also buy, have umbrellas or different things like that that help to block the shade as well, or to block the sun as well. So just kind of look at, every home is different. And so what works at my home here, my mom's home, and what works at your home may be different. But the basic principle is think about landscaping, about awnings, umbrellas, things like that, that can block the sun from coming directly into your house. Another thing that you can do is, if you're living in a place where the temperature drops significantly at night, and if you're in an area where it's safe to do so, you can open the windows at night. Depending on where you're at, like where we live in Southern California, the temperature does drop at night, but not drastically. And also, crime, it's not horrible, but it's high enough that I wouldn't feel comfortable going to bed at night with all the windows open and that type of thing. But when we're still up, we do have doors and windows open after it gets dark, because often that cools the house down. Where my husband and I also own a condo in Colorado, and it gets downright cold at night there, even in the summer. And also our condo, it's a two-story condo, and the first floor is on the second floor of the building, and our bedrooms are up on what's the third floor of the building. And because of that, I feel, I'm safe opening up the windows, especially on the third floor where we're sleeping at night. And it gets really, really cool. And so your home can actually get cold at night, depending on where you live. You can use blankets, and then that really brings down the temperature of the home or condo, apartment, whatever you live in. And then in the morning, before it gets too hot, you can close everything up, and you're starting off with it being pretty cool in the home. So again, that depends on the climate of where you live and the safety level and how comfortable you are having windows open. If you're concerned about the safety, you could open a window just enough to let some air in, but have put a broomstick or a dowel or something like that to keep it from opening all the way, so that you let air in, but it's not enough that anybody could, easily break in. So again, this depends on where you live, your particular situation, the climate, the safety level, and all of that. But it can really help if your temperature drops at night and you get the house cooled off at night. That can give you, first of all, it'll help you sleep better. And then also it'll help you the next day to start off with a home that's cool. Okay, so another thing that you can do to keep cool in hot weather without electricity is to stay well hydrated. Okay, so it's important to not be dehydrated. It's important to be well hydrated if you want to stay cool, and it's just good for your health as well. So the first and most obvious thing is to drink plenty of water. Now, obviously, if you happen to have ice, which if your power's out, you may not, but if you do, you can fill up a jar with ice water, be, sipping it. It'll stay cold for a while. Another thing that you could do is you can keep some bottles of water in the freezer, and then if the power goes out, pull them out, and they'll stay cold throughout the day. This is something I do a lot on car trips, is that I'll start off with these frozen bottles of water, and they just gradually melt throughout the day, and I have ice cold water to drink all the time. So that's something you can kind of prepare for ahead of time. Stick water in the freezer, bottles of water in the freezer, and then that way, even without power, you've got ice water. But even if you don't have ice water, just drinking plain water, room temperature water, will help hydrate your body, and that'll help keep you cooler. Now, believe it or not, there are certain foods that hydrate your body well, and those are good ones to eat really anytime, but especially to hydrate your body when you're trying to keep cool without electricity. Some good examples include watermelon, cucumber, strawberries, celery. All of those are very high in water content, especially watermelon, but the other ones as well. And eating those can help hydrate your body as well. And another thing, and kind of related to that, is avoid really heavy meals. Eat lighter meals, more your salads and your cool things, rather than, say, a steak and a baked potato. For one thing, you might have a hard time cooking that when the power's out. But even if you have a means to cook that, that's not going to be the best thing to eat when your power's out and you're trying to stay cool. But eating fruit, eating salads, that type of thing will also help you to stay hydrated when it's really hot and you don't have any electricity. Another thing is to drink herbal teas. Herbal teas are a great way to stay hydrated, and there's certain ones such as peppermint and chamomile that have a cooling effect on your body. So that's another thing that you can do. Obviously, if it's iced or at least at room temperature, then it's going to taste better to you and just help cool your body more than something that's hot. So this is another thing that you could technically make some and stick it in the freezer and have it for if it's just a hot day and maybe you want to use less electricity, or you're going to be out and about, or your power goes out and you just want something to cool you down. So herbal teas such as chamomile and peppermint are great options for hydrating your body. Okay, now this one is a little bit tough for me. It's avoiding alcohol and caffeine. Now, I actually don't really drink alcohol, but I do like my coffee. But it is something that dehydrates you rather than hydrates you. So it's best to avoid caffeine if you're wanting to stay well hydrated, which is good really anytime. I like my coffee though, so I'm not going to skip it unless I'm really, really needing to hydrate my body to help stay cool when the power's out. Staying hydrated is a great way to regulate your body temperature and to help you to avoid any heat-related illnesses. Okay, and anybody can suffer from heat-related illnesses, but especially the ends of the spectrum, older like my mother, who's 92, or younger if you have babies or young children, keeping them well hydrated is really important. Drinking plenty of water, avoiding things like coffee or alcohol that dehydrate you, and also eating hydrating foods, such as anything with a high water content, which is going to be most fruits and vegetables. Now, there's some other things that you can do to stay cool or to cool yourself down when it's really hot and you don't have electricity. One is taking a cold shower or a cool shower, not a hot one. If you can handle a cold shower, then that'll really cool you down. And while you're at it, wetting your hair and keeping your hair wet, because it takes, at least for me, it depends on your hair, but my hair takes quite a while, a couple hours to dry. And during that whole time, it's it's acting as kind of a cooling agent for me. Now, if I don't have time or whatever it is to take a shower, I can use a spray bottle and just spritz my hair and even your face, your arms, other things like that. So if you're either in a situation where you can't take a shower or you just don't have time or don't want to bother with it, just use a spray bottle and mist yourself, get your hair wet. I even find misting my clothing. You've maybe been to an amusement park where it's hot and they have these misters running, and you walk through them and go, oh, it just feels so good. Well, you may not have a mister at your home, or if your electricity's out, it may not be working, but just a good old-fashioned spray bottle that you use to wet your hair and mist your face, mist your clothing, can help to reduce your body temperature, at least temporarily. And the spray bottle is easy to use throughout the day as well. So anytime you feel hot, you can do that. Next is to choose a shady, breezy spot. Now this kind of goes almost without saying that if you can be outside under a shade tree, that can make a huge difference. The home we lived in Colorado had these big trees in front of it. And I remember once we were having a yard sale and it was hot, but everyone that came to not everyone, but a lot of the people who came to our place, they mentioned, oh, it's so nice and cool here. And it's because we had all of these trees. So again, that's something that you may have, you may not have. If you're just terribly hot inside your home and you don't have any big shade trees, there might be just a nearby park or something else that does have shade trees that you can sit under and just cool down that way. So shade, don't underestimate the value of shade. And keep that in mind if you're ever have the budget, the means to build your shade for the future. Another thing is to go for a swim. Now, obviously not everyone has a swimming pool, but like where we currently live, there are, I think, 4 different clubhouses in this little community where we live. One is I can actually see from my front window. There's a swimming pool there. So that's something that you can do, is just get out and again, get in water. Water is one of the most cooling things. Getting your body wet is one of the most cooling things that you can do. So obviously, if your swimming pool that you're using is out in the sun, you want to make sure and use some sunscreen to keep from getting sunburned. And this is especially true if you have little ones. Slather them with some sunscreen before spending a bunch of time in the pool. But that can definitely cool you down as well. Now, maybe you don't have a swimming pool, or you just don't want to get out. Maybe you don't like being in public in a swimsuit or what have you. Even something as simple as filling a tub with some water and sticking your feet in the water can help to cool you down. You may have noticed before that when it's super cold, you're covering your head, like wearing a cap, covering your hands with mittens, putting on thick socks. That kind of keeps you from getting too cold. And it's because heat escapes from your extremities. But it's also true that you can cool your body down by cooling your extremities. And one way to do that, again, wetting your head, but also sticking your feet in a tub of water, that can help bring down your temperature, help cool you if you don't have an option to go swimming. Another thing that you can do is to use cool cloths. Even if you take a washcloth and you dip it in water and kind of wring it out and fold it and put it around your neck, that can help you out. There's actually some cloths out there that are made specifically for cooling that you can get that will help to cool you, especially putting that around your neck. That's often the best way to do that, is to just get a cloth wet, kind of roll it up and put it around your neck to help cool you down. So the bottom line is that while you're not going to get the same impact as you would with air conditioning, most likely, if you don't have electricity and it's really hot outside, it's not going to be as comfortable as it would be as if you had electricity, except maybe at night. If you live in a cool climate, a climate that drops down the temperature at night, then it can be just as cool as air conditioning. But for the most part, if you live someplace hot like me, I'm in Riverside County, it is hot We don't have the ocean breeze like you do in a lot of California. But in spite of that, using these tips can help to bring down the temperature in the home and just help make me more comfortable, to make all of us more comfortable, either when the electricity goes out or when I simply want to use less electricity. Where we live, electrics, it seems like everything's expensive in California, including electricity. I think our rates are about double what they are in most other states. And so these tips help us to save money, even when we do have electricity, but we don't want to run the air conditioning as high. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you would like this video. And if you haven't already done so, if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.